Ever just walk into a Publix and think, how on earth did they get this big?
Yeah.
Well, we're doing a deep dive today into Publix, the grocery store, the cultural phenomenon.
That's right. We are going from a single store to an empire.
Welcome to Old Florida Now, where we uncover the rich history and hidden stories of the Sunshine State. Each episode will explore the people, places, and events that shaped Florida's past. Let's dive in.
It all starts back in 1930s Florida.
Yeah, in the heart of the Great Depression.
Not exactly a booming time to start a business, was it?
Not at all. Most folks were just trying to get by.
But not George Jenkins, the founder of Publix. Or should I say Mr. George, as I hear he's still known.
Yeah, Mr. George had this vision, this drive to build something different.
And he starts this different thing in the thick of the Depression. What gave him the confidence?
Well, he saw an opportunity. Everyone needs groceries, right?
That's true. Can't argue with that.
But he didn't just want to sell groceries. He wanted to create a community around them. That was a new idea back then.
Okay, so we've got Mr. George, big dreams, the Great Depression. Take me a picture of this first Publix store.
All right, picture this. A 3,000 square foot space in Winter Haven, Florida.
3,000 square feet. That's like one aisle in a modern supermarket.
Right, and that was a big deal back then. Mr. George wasn't afraid to try new things, like he was one of the first to put air conditioning in his store.
Air conditioning in the 1940s. Talk about customer service.
Exactly. He understood that creating a comfortable experience would keep people coming back.
Smart. So he starts small in the 30s, goes big with supermarkets in the 40s. When does Publix really start to hit its stride?
Well, World War II kind of threw a wrench in things for everyone.
Right. Makes sense.
But right after the war, Mr. George made a power move. He buys up 19 stores. 19. From the Lakeland Grocery Company.
Lakeland Grocery Company, got it. So that's when Publix really starts to grow.
Oh, yeah, that acquisition fueled their expansion across Florida.
So they're taking over the Sunshine State, but there's got to be more to it than that. What sets Publix apart from other grocery chains, even back then?
Well, this is where things get really interesting. This growth wasn't just about more stores. It was about laying the foundation for something much bigger, something unique.
What are we talking about here?
Employee ownership.
Wait, hold on. Back then, they were doing employee ownership in the 1940s.
Yeah. It's one of the things that makes Publix so unique. Mr. George wanted his employees to feel like they were invested in the company's success.
Interesting. How'd that work exactly?
Eligible employees, they actually become part owners.
So they're not just working for Publix, they're working with Publix.
Exactly. They're part of the team.
That's got to make a difference in how you approach your job, knowing you've got a stake in it.
Absolutely. And that's reflected in the quality of their customer service.
Which is legendary, by the way. Have you ever met a rude Publix employee?
I can't say that I have.
And it all stems back to this employee ownership model. That's wild.
It's a big part of it. They've created this culture of ownership, and it really shows.
Okay, but how does this employee ownership tie into their tech side? They were early adopters of barcode scanners, ATMs, all that. Were employees driving those decisions?
Now, that's a fascinating question.
Right. It's not the first thing you think about.
We don't have specific examples of employee-led tech initiatives.
Makes sense.
But think about it. It's got to make a difference in how they implement new technologies.
Right. Instead of just being told what to do, they're more likely to embrace new ideas.
Exactly. Because they know it can directly impact their own bottom line.
It's like a built-in incentive for innovation.
Right. And it's not just about technology and profits, it's about community, too. Publix has this deep commitment to the communities they serve.
Oh, yeah. Their partnership with Feeding America is huge.
Exactly. They donate tons of food to help fight hunger.
It seems like it's more than just writing checks, though. It feels like it's part of their DNA.
You hit the nail on the head. It's ingrained in their culture.
So it's not just about selling groceries. It's about being a responsible member of the community.
Exactly. They really walk the walk.
Speaking of which, let's talk about the food. We've covered the history, the employee ownership, the community focus.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, this is a grocery store.
Oh, yeah. Gotta talk about the groceries.
And when we talk Publix groceries, we gotta talk about the Pub Sub.
You kidding? The Pub Sub is legendary.
I've heard people say that trying a Pub Sub is like a rite of passage when you move down south.
Oh, totally.
Like you're not really a Southerner till you've had one.
It's true. Those Pub Subs, there's something else. It's more than just a sandwich. It's an experience.
So what's the secret? Is it the bread? The ingredients?
Yeah.
The customizable options? What makes them so special?
It's all of that, honestly. But it's also the freshness.
Okay, true. Everything always tastes better when it's fresh.
Exactly. And it's not just the deli. Their bakery, oh man.
Don't even get me started on that bakery. Those cookies.
Right. They're dangerous. And they even have cooking schools at some locations now.
Cooking schools.
Really? Yeah. They're teaching folks how to cook up their own Publix-inspired meals.
That's pretty cool. It's like they're not just a grocery store anymore. They're a whole foodie destination.
Exactly. They're evolving, keeping up with the times. And you can't forget about their Greenwise markets.
Greenwise, right. I keep meaning to check those out. They're more like organic, health-focused, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're all about sustainable groceries, natural and organic products. It's a whole different vibe.
It's smart, though. They're catering to both ends of the spectrum, the budget shoppers and the folks looking for those premium, healthy options.
It's a tough balance to strike, but they seem to be doing it well.
So we've talked about their history, how they started from nothing, the whole employee ownership thing.
Which is huge.
Right. Absolutely groundbreaking, even today. But it begs the question, can this model last?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Because the grocery industry, it's a whole different beast these days.
Oh, tell me about it. Competition is fiercer than ever.
You've got online giants like Amazon moving in on their turf.
Exactly. It's not just the store down the street anymore.
And then there's the whole automation thing. Robots taking over jobs, AI calling the shots.
It's a lot for any company to handle, even as successful as Publix.
So how does a company, a grocery store at that, with such a strong identity, this unique structure, how do they navigate the future of grocery shopping?
That is the big question. How do they compete in this rapidly changing landscape?
It almost makes you wonder what Mr. George would say if he could see the grocery landscape today.
That's an interesting thought.
Right. Here's this guy, back in the 1930s, putting air conditioning in his store when nobody else was doing it.
You don't talk about a visionary.
Exactly. So what would he make of online shopping and delivery services and self-checkout kiosks and all that?
I think he'd see both the challenges and the opportunities.
How so?
Remember, Mr. George was all about the customer experience.
Right. Making it enjoyable to shop for groceries.
So he might see these new technologies as a way to enhance that experience, to meet the customer where they are.
Which is increasingly online.
Exactly. And think about it, with their employee ownership model, wouldn't Publix employees be more likely to embrace those changes?
That's a really good point. They've got skin in the game, so to speak.
Exactly. They're not just clocking in and out. They're invested in the company's success.
So those changes, that future, it doesn't have to be a threat. It could actually be an advantage for Publix.
It could be. But it's a delicate balance.
How so?
They have to innovate and adapt without losing that unique Publix culture that's made them so successful.
That makes a lot of sense. You don't mess with a winning formula, but you also don't want to get left behind. So, as we look ahead, what are some of the key things you'll be watching for in this Publix story? What's the real litmus test for their future success, in your opinion?
It's tricky, right? How do you stay true to your roots while also adapting to a whole new world?
It's a tough line to walk, for sure. I think the real test for Publix is going to be their expansion strategy.
Because they've been pretty content to stay in the Southeast, haven't they? Exactly. They've been slow and steady, very deliberate about expanding outside their comfort zone.
While other grocery chains are popping up everywhere.
Right. But that's the thing about their employee ownership model. It influences everything.
How so?
Well, their growth is entirely self-funded.
Instead of relying on outside investors.
Exactly. So they're not beholden to Wall Street. They can grow at their own pace.
Makes sense. But doesn't that put them at a disadvantage? These bigger companies, they've got deep pockets, they can move fast.
It's definitely a risk.
Right. So how do they compete?
That's where those strengths we talked about, the employee ownership, the strong community ties, that's what sets them apart.
So it's not just about the bottom line. It's about the bigger picture.
Exactly. And that's a powerful thing. It'll be fascinating to see if they can maintain that as they grow.
Because that's the challenge, isn't it? Scaling that culture, that Publix magic, without losing what makes it special.
It's the ultimate balancing act. But, no matter what the future holds for Publix, their story is pretty inspiring.
How so?
They've shown the world that a different way of doing business is possible, that you don't have to choose between profits and people.
It's like that old saying, do well by doing good.
Exactly. And that's a message we could all use a little more of these days.
Couldn't agree more. Well, folks, there you have it, our deep dive into Publix, the grocery store that's redefining what it means to be a successful business.
From a single store in 1930s Florida to an employee-owned empire, they've certainly left their mark.
And who knows what the future holds, but one thing's for sure, they'll be doing it their own way.
That they will.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, folks. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to Old Florida Now. Stay tuned for more stories from the Sunshine State's past. Until next time.